Okay, guys, welcome back. And I have Amber here from Pre-Planning Solutions. Amber, how are you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on my show.
Well, thank you for having us. I mean, advanced planning and funeral care is one of the things that people don't want to talk about. So it's great that you've brought us here so that we can educate the community.
Right.
I wanted to, specifically, Steve from Salser and Dillard and Visalia wanted to say thanks because, you know, it's very hard to get information out to the community.
Yeah, it is. And thank you, Steve, for having Amber here on our show. And yeah, you're right. That's something that a lot of families don't want to, speak about and go and pick out coffins. And
yeah, nobody ever wakes up and says, today's a great day to pick out my casket or to pick out my urn, whatever they want. So,
I know it sounds bad, but it's true.
Right. And none of us are getting out of it.
Nope.
And truthfully, the younger you do it, the better. You know, I have people that are 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, granted, we do have plenty of folks that come in once health is already starting to fail, hospice care, like we were discussing earlier.
Yes.
But at that point, you're already making emotional decisions.
Right.
And so by taking care of things in advance, you prevent overspending. You prevent emotional spending.
Exactly.
You prevent families from fighting amongst themselves. You know, we have a family that sisters don't speak to each other to this day because they couldn't agree on what they wanted mom to be buried in. Mom always said it was going to be like she was going to sleep and she should be in her pajamas. And the other sister said, no way in the world are we going to let mom be seen by the world in her PJs.
Yeah.
So it really avoids those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, and you're right. Pre-plan, start thinking about it. And like we had talked about, I mean, when I used to be a firefighter, I would tell my family, my grandparents, because at that time they were already, aging and picking out their stuff. And I said, you know what, when I die, I want a fire truck. Can they do stuff like that?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a fire truck.
Well, just your coffin
to be shaped like a fire truck, or to have the color of a fire truck.
Detailed, or
we could shrink wrap a design so that it had maybe the engine company on the side or something like that, and in red, of course.
That is neat to know. What about Dallas Cowboy? Because I'm a Cowboy fan. Put a big old star on the top of mine.
Yep, we can shrink wrap sports teams as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. But, I'll kidding aside here. But, yeah, Amber, it's seriously, it's very, very important for us to start knowing about this and start planning now, what we're going to do, how we're going to handle it. Because, you don't want to just, anything can happen, like poor little Janessa, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's
a perfect example of that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So if something were to happen to you tomorrow, God forbid, what would your family do? What have you discussed it even?
No.
So what I do is I sit down with families and I say, look, thanks for at least making a phone call to me or showing up at one of our health fairs, and let's walk you through the process. There's 3 steps. 1, we're going to gather some basic information, make sure we have the correct spelling of your name, where you were born, where your parents were born, information that is used on a death certificate ultimately, but you and I, it'll take us 5 minutes.
Right.
When I see a family at the time, it takes anywhere from 20, 30, 40 minutes just because they either don't know the information or they're just under such emotional stress that they can't remember.
Right.
Second, we go through the service options and merchandise selections, what it is you would want for yourself. I've had people come in and say, no way in the world do I want flowers there because every time I see a flower, I associate it with a funeral. So I want it to be a celebration. Okay, great. Let's do balloons instead.
Right.
Explaining the differences between forms of disposition, whether you choose a traditional burial or a cremation. A lot of people don't know that with cremation doesn't mean you can't have a visitation with your body present and a funeral service with the body present in a casket.
Wow.
You can, instead of going on to the cemetery afterwards, we just conclude the service and the cremation process takes place after the service itself.
That's good to know. That's
and a lot of people don't know that. So that's my job and my team's job. I work with funeral homes up and down the valley specifically. Salser and Dillard in Visalia, Myers Funeral Service in Porterville. We've got Creighton in Kingsburg, Dawkins in Dinuba. So we work with funeral homes anywhere. So I can help you with a funeral home locally in your area.
That's good to know. That's great to know. Also, so say like, okay, I'm going to start with you. I want to start now and make a plan with you, right?
Correct.
And we make payments on this,
correct,
right? Mm-hmm. So say I start this account with you and then I move out of state.
All plans are by law. Every funeral home, so if you ever have a funeral home says, write a check to me in advance, turn and walk out their door. By law, your money has to be invested in a secure instrument. Okay. And most funeral homes these days, because of the market, no longer use bank trusts. They use an insurance policy. Right. So the insurance policy you are the owner of, and you can transfer it anywhere in the U.S.
Wonderful. That's good to know, because I think maybe that's probably a lot of the fear, too. Well, what if I start here and then I move somewhere else? How's that going to transfer over?
Yeah, it all transfers with you, and you can make payments over time.
Okay.
And if something were to happen to you prior to your payments being completed, generally, depending on health, you are still covered 100%. And everyone's approved regardless of health. You could have cancer now and still be approved to make payments over time. So the funeral would be taken care of and the balance of the payments forgiven.
Awesome, awesome. So get a hold of Amber, you guys. It wouldn't hurt to call her and ask some questions, you know, on what steps I need to take right now. And
I can schedule an appointment with any of our family service directors. You can call us toll free at 855-EASY-TO-PLAN or 855-392-7526.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on my show.
No problem.
You guys, we'll be right back.